You may know that many airlines have unions and Delta does not. Delta workers are, of course, looking to unionize given the working conditions they're facing, but this will not be without, of course, union busting. I mean, it's the United States of America in 2023 now, and this is what they do. Workers are calling what they've created a culture of fear. So workers are facing stagnant wages and short staffing, along with just a plethora of terrible working conditions under Delta. And despite the airline enjoying soaring profits coming out of the pandemic, the unions, reporting from The Guardian, are in the process of collecting a majority of union authorization cards to merit a union election, with the National Mediation Board announcing a joint collective effort several weeks ago. So various workers within Delta are unionizing. It's not just flight attendants or one faction or the other. It is the flight attendants who are organizing with the Association of Flight Attendants, CWA. Then we have ramp agents with the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, the IAM, and mechanics with the Teamsters. So Delta Airlines has aggressively opposed unionization over the years. Thus, the company has the lowest percentage of workers currently represented by a labor union among US airlines, currently at around 20% for more than 80,000 employees at the company. So a previous union drive before the pandemic was not successful. And of course, the pandemic disturbed all kinds of union organizing efforts, but there's a new effort that's taking off at Delta. A recent surge in union support across the United States, grueling working conditions throughout the COVID-19 pandemic and the impact of inflation on stagnant wages, while unionized pilots at Delta Airlines recently won a contract that included a pay raise of 34% over 4 years. Currently, there are about 16,000 to 17,000 ramp agents at Delta Airlines. So that's a lot of workers to get together. So many of them, because of the culture of fear, are not open to talking about this effort. But anonymously, a ramp worker stated they're removing more and more full-time lines. Many of these lines aren't 40-hour-a-week lines. They're 32-hour-a-week lines. So it's not a full-time job. You have a high seniority position. They've given their life, their bodies to this company. They've paid their dues. And in order to hold weekends on a good shift, they have to take a 32-hour line, which is a pay cut. So the culture of fear is alive and well at Delta. They claimed arbitrary write-ups. And that's created a culture of fear at the airline and scheduling cuts that have also reduced paid time off for workers, which have driven workers into signing union authorization cards. So Delta only has themselves to blame for the workers organizing. And of course, they're organizing against the workers while they're experiencing record profits. Look at this headline: Delta sees air travel boom, nearly doubling its 2023 earnings. So without these ramp workers, without the flight attendants, without the pilots, without the machinists as well and aerospace workers, the planes don't take off. Delta makes no money. And meeting their most basic demands so that they have a decent work environment and actually get paid for the work they do. And when they're giving 32 hours of their week to Delta, they can be considered a full-time employee and enjoy benefits like healthcare. No, instead Delta has decided that their workers are expendable, which is not surprising. But the workers at Delta are making some strides in unionizing, which is good to hear. Jackson?
So I think that, stories like this, as well as anything similar, whether it be Starbucks union busting tactics, Amazon, Tesla, anything along those lines, reflects the importance of culture within any type of system, political culture, business culture, and just kind of the general idea that a lot of people really have that government and regulations get in the way and that unions are a bad thing because it keeps corporations from being able to profit to the max and it gets in the way of shareholders. And that's the culture. And that's, let alone a corporation's overall goal is to seek profit. So, this is one of those issues that we can't take our eyes off of, and one that we can track back, because right around when Ronald Reagan was elected into office, things like unionization, workers' rights, and just the working class in general, the wealth started to shift more over into the shareholder economy. And regulation started to steep it because, importantly, the culture was ramped up again. That we gotta let the business loose. We gotta give people, the captains of industry. We got to take the chains off of them because they're benevolent and they're the ones who are going to set us straight. So I think obviously big ups to the workers for doing what they can, and it's important that we tell these stories. But this just reflects the culture that's alive and well in the business in America.
Yeah, from the consumer perspective as well, what the airlines are up to lately is awful. I mean, the way that they're just canceling flights, overbooking flights, people who are trying to go home and see their families have been left at the airport. And then when they do catch a flight, their luggage is absolutely missing. Stuff that they needed to bring with them, clothes, maybe they're going on a work trip. And the airline is making record profits despite giving this despicable service. And this isn't just happening during the holiday season, it's been happening year round. And who deals with the brunt of consumers who are disgruntled about not being able to get on the flight they paid to take to go see their families? It's the workers that are gonna have to deal with all of these people who are terribly mad at Delta Airlines, when the workers are just as mad at Delta Airlines as well, for different reasons, of course. But something's got to give here, because in the United States, when you have corporations that are trying to pay less and less of their revenue out to labor to cover labor costs, despite seeing increases in productivity, so their workers creating more and more things of value, corporations profiting more and more, but paying workers less and less, who's going to be able to afford the plane tickets at that point? Who are you going to sell the product to that you're creating? And so it really feels like people like Delta have no sense of what life is like for everyday people and these workers, because if they did, they'd realize that they're responsible for tanking their own company. And now a lot of people are talking about alternatives like high-speed rails, which of course would need to be a big public investment, because it seems like Elon would rather create private roads for Tesla to drive on. But something's got to give, and Pete Buttigieg also isn't regulating the airline industry either, which is his job. Any last thoughts on this, Jackson?
Yeah, and lest we not forget that, airlines like Delta, Southwest, they just got bailed out. They just got a ton of tax dollars and still fired thousands of workers, used that money to boost their shares. And they're still like, nah, we don't, even though we got this money and these resources to help our workers, because they can, because that's how the laws are set up. And I was actually flew Southwest and I was several days late coming back too. It didn't impact me that negatively, but a lot of people it did. And these are the companies that get so much grace from, the government that they're supposed to be against. So,
Yeah, those are PDB's friends from McKinsey. He's gonna help them out, not regulate them.